Hello, folks. Boxed Bandy here. My co-host is Land Cloud Adventures. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about some of a recap of my live stream I did the other night. I think everybody really enjoyed it. For those who didn't make it to the live stream, I wanted to share some fun points. So I hope you'll enjoy this video. And I hope you'll look at the description below to see what the video was, or there will be links in the description below the video. Okay, I'll be 69 years old next month in June. And I was born in Washington, D.C., and I was born with pneumonia. I was premature, and back then 4 pounds 2 ounces was a pretty small baby, because their survival rate was not that good. They didn't have the same technology they do today. But I was a fighter even back then. And I fought to live. So even from infancy, we moved constantly. Anyhow, so I was the middle child. And I believe we lived in almost every state of the United States except maybe 5 or 6. Never for very long. I never went to school for a whole year, for a whole school year. We moved every 2, 3, 4 months. We really never had roots. My parents didn't own anything. I think part of the reason we traveled a lot because they couldn't afford or find a place to have that big of a family, so we moved all the time. Anyhow, we pretty much lived in our car, even from infancy. By the time I was 8 or 9 years old, we started working in the fields. Up until that time, my parents held a lot of odds and end jobs. Mom, she worked very, very hard, and all of us kids work alongside of her. And my dad was rarely in the fields. He went and found something else to do somewhere else, left us all out there to work in the fields. And it's funny because I don't remember my dad working in the fields very much. When we traveled, when we worked in the fields, we moved from one crop to the next. We followed the crops based on the season. Whatever season crops were growing during that season, that's what we picked. And we would stay in houses and apartments for a few months at a time when we were going to school. But so they would find, well, when we were driving, we always drove down out the country on the back roads and stuff. They would see an old house that was falling apart. Most of them didn't even have windows. They didn't have running bathroom facilities, or a lot of them didn't even have electricity. But my parents would find out who the owner was, and they would talk them into letting us stay in that place while we cleaned it up and get the yards and stuff looking good. And we put very little money into it, but we did fix it up. So when we weren't staying in a house, and of course they had to stay in houses at times because of the school. So when we weren't staying in houses, we were moving. We were on the road in usually a station wagon. Each of us kids was given a cardboard box to put everything we own inside, including our toys. So if our clothes and toys didn't fit in the box, we would have to leave it behind. We would be staying in a house one time, wherever we were. And my dad would come home, and he said, my mother's name was Mary. He said, Mary, get packed. Get the kids packed their stuff. We're leaving tonight. And sure enough, okay, hang on. I do have somebody down here to help me out. Oh, Nate, you're a sweetheart. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm rambling.
You're doing great. I was going to say, I probably just got to jump up, and I'm still probably just going to listen, but...
Well, if I even let you get a word in edgewise. But, so, yeah. So we had a box each, and my mother would pack all the dishes and pots and pans and her broom, odds and ends, things, that cleaning supplies and food and everything went in the trunk and underneath us. So she would stack up the boxes in the back of the station wagon and then put all our bedding on top of the boxes to make us a bed in the back of the station wagon. So until my baby sister came along, there were 3 of us stretched out across the back. One in the front seat, one to my mom and dad, usually my oldest sister, because she had long legs. So anyhow, but the rest of us slept in the back. And then when my baby sister came along, we had 4 of us in the back because the baby had to be on the front. So that's the way we lived. We lived in a car. So we moved. We went to national parks, campgrounds, on the side of the roads, out in the country, and just pulled off in a little spot to camp. That's the way we grew up. So I've been a nomad my entire life, really. And I'm the only one out of 5 kids that likes to travel, that wants to be on the road, that I can settle down. I never could. Even as when I was raising my kids in a house, I moved all the time, every 6 months, every year at least. I raised my kids a lot the way I was raised, not quite the same, but they did have a home, but I did move a lot. So let's see. So all my brothers and sisters, at a certain point in our lives, we ended up in California. We still traveled all year, but during the school year, we would go to the desert. And so by the time I was 16 years old, I ran away from home, of course, because all that, I think I shared that story on one of my videos.
Here's I know I've said this before, but inspiration. Everybody just looks at you as an inspiration. So
thank you. So sometimes we got a car top carrier, not the big plastic or one they have today or the bags. We just had a metal rails across the back of the 2 rails across the top of the station wagon, and we ran ropes over the boxes and stuff. That's how we hauled everything. So everything we owned for 7 people went in one car, and that's the way we lived. We stopped and camped on the side of the road. We didn't have sleeping bags. We didn't have tents. We slept on the ground. We slept under blankets. We made beds with pine needles, and we are up in the mountains. My parents liked to drive at night because then us kids would be asleep most of the time. We survived. So all my brothers and sisters are living up in Washington State. They all have kids and grandkids. They are all close around each other except one, which is in Texas, and nobody's seen her for a while. I raised 2 boys, and I raised them pretty much moving all the time. I'm not proud of that because I didn't get them very much stability. It's not because I was a nomad, because I wasn't during that time. I worked 2 and 3 jobs to support my kids. I'll share a couple of situations. I remember we found an old house somewhere in Arkansas. I don't know what town it was. It was out in the country. This house had no windows. It had a great big porch with the pillars and the holes in the porch. It had an outhouse. It had no kitchen appliances, no electricity, no running water. We had a well. In that place, there was a well bucket that went into the well. It was a long bucket. And we dropped down in the well to get our water out. So my dad was off somewhere working. And so my mother and my oldest brother and my sister, they were working in the peaches, and they would leave and come home in the evening. So I can remember I was left to take care of my 2 younger sisters. And they would bring tons of peaches home. We didn't have a lot of food, but we had peaches. And I remember I decided to make my mom a peach pie. And we didn't even have a stove. Look, my sister's here.
I saw that.
Let's see. I got internet again. Yay, outside of Little Rock was where that house was. We took showers when it rained under the rain gutters. We did. And we had an outhouse, but I can remember in the middle of the night, we didn't want to walk out to the outhouse. It was quite a ways. So, and there was a neighbor, they had a horse in the fence, beyond the fence of where we were. And I remember going bareback riding on that horse. It was so much fun. Hey, if you guys are enjoying this, go ahead and share it out on your Facebook or in your community tab. I made a homemade peach pie on a 1-burner stove. Anyhow, but it didn't turn out very good and nobody enjoyed it. The outhouse door didn't close, she said.
I was about to say that. Ann is saying, yeah, you couldn't get privacy. It doesn't close.
No, and they always had the 2-seaters. I never could figure out why they had a 2-seater outhouse.
I had a cousin explain that to me once, and they explained they had dual outhouses.
Right.
And I looked at this like at Christmas or Thanksgiving. I looked at them like, you guys are crazy. Why would you want to? And you know, they've been married for 40, 30 years, whatever. And they're like, well, you'll never be as close to somebody if you poop next to them.
I think in those days they had a lot of big families, okay? And you only have one outhouse. So when you have 5 or 6 kids, the kids don't care if they go to the bathroom at the same time. I think that's why they did it. I don't know. That's my explanation, and I'm sticking to it. And we would pour pine sol down in there so it wouldn't stink so bad. Of course, strong pine sol is pretty noxious too. Another story from the house that we lived in Arkansas is they had tarantulas, big tarantulas. And I remember one night a tarantula got inside. We didn't have beds. We slept on blankets, made pallets on the floor. So we had the windows and door boarded up, okay? Killed it. And then one night, we were sleeping. All of us girls slept on one pallet together. My brother had his own pallet. So one night we hear tapping on that door. And the door was boarded up. So we couldn't, open the door or find out what it was. But it was like, that's what it was like all night long, tapping. So we were scared to death. Literally, we were scared to death. And so the next morning, finally in daylight, we were able to go out and find out what's going on out there. Nobody was out there. Then we found this little dog. A cute little stray dog came up to that porch and wanted to be brought in. So we named him Tippy, and we were able to keep him till we moved again a few months later. We had a rough life, but look at the life we lived. Look at the things we did that I actually have pleasant memories about those things. Those are good memories.
Everybody's just loving your stories, Dee.
I don't know. Sometimes I'm afraid to share some of this stuff these days. Yeah, now these memories will be on YouTube. That's true. Because I share everything on my YouTube channel, on my videos and live streams. And I don't do this for attention. But what I do is try to let people know that It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter how bad it was. You don't have to live there anymore. You know, move on. Change your life today. Do something different. Find joy in the moment. I live in a box truck. I started out in a car. I lived in my car till I was too sick to do that anymore. Then I had to work that out. I bought a cargo trailer on payments. I built out the cargo trailer. I wasn't physically fit, but I managed. I did what I had to do. And anybody can do what they have to do. You have to do something. You can't sit around and wait for somebody to do it for you. Get out there and do it. Find some joy. Find pleasure. You know, it's fun, actually. And you can find joy in it, even the struggles. So, but you can smile about it. I can laugh about it and talk about it on a YouTube channel.
A lot of people were saying they loved your stories. But your sister has a question here. That crazy guy that was hunting rabbits shot and hit the outhouse just as mom came out of it. Missed her, thank God.
Yeah. Well, I could tell a story about my sister, Annie. She's my baby sister. And we lived in a place in La Puente, California. We actually lived in a house during this time. It was during the school year. My mother slept in the daytime because she worked a graveyard. And my dad worked in the daytime, so nobody was taking care of my baby sister. But we had a dog during this time. The dog's name was Bootsy. He was an Alaskan Husky. Beautiful black and white, beautiful dog. Wonderful dog. And we had a garage. And somehow my baby sister Annie got out into the garage. And the garage door had been left open when the rest of us kids had gone to school. And she got out in the street through the garage while my mother slept. And that dog, Bootsy, dragged my baby sister by the seat of her pants back into the garage and woke my mother up with her. So that dog saved her life. And another time in that same house, that dog was an amazing dog. We got up one morning. We heard a lot of ruckus in the backyard that night. And we got out in the yard that next day, and there was a man's parrot's pants all chewed up in the backyard. And Bootsy apparently had chased him off and took his pants. So that was a really smart dog. He's wonderful. If you love dogs, I tell you what, we couldn't have animals very often, but we did have a few.
But could you imagine that today? That video of a camera catching that would be a great short for YouTube.
I know.
A dog taking the pants off.
Would be a very great one.
You just have everybody still saying that. I mean, like Lisa, love hearing your stories. Dee, and up above, Angie was saying that she could do this every night, nighttime stories with Dee. So.
I couldn't do it every night. The one thing my mother did, I already said my mother was very clean. We got all our clothes at the thrift stores, but the panties we never got at the thrift store. We always had brand new panties. She made sure we had new underwears. Not socks, but underwears. When we were growing up, we did get ice cream. We usually got what they call imitation ice cream, and almost always Neapolitan, but a half a gallon, whatever they were, half-gallon ice cream, square thing, cut in 7 pieces. You never got enough, ever got enough.
So Dee, everybody's loving your stories. I just have one random question, being a math logic person. You mentioned cutting things into 7s all the time, and I'm trying to picture cutting things. Right. I picture cutting into 8.
Right.
Was there a system for cutting something into 7 pieces?
Yeah, there was a system. This is my parents' system.
Okay.
one of us had to cut the ice cream, right? Everybody else got to pick the piece they wanted.
Okay.
And we got stuck with the smallest piece. So we learned real quick how to cut even pieces so everybody got the same size piece.
Gotcha.
That was the system. Anytime we had to divide something up in the family like that, whoever did the cutting or measuring got the least, always.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was the one thing I'm trying to cut everything in my mind. Cut. How do you cut something in some pieces?
Exactly.
All right.
Hello, Niles. Let's see. He says, remember when Mom would put a bowl on our head and cut around it for a haircut? Yes, she did. She sure did. Every one of us, once a year or twice a year, my mom would get a special bowl out. I can demonstrate it.
You're not actually going to cut your hair right now, are you?
No, I'm not. But this is what
say.
my mother did. She put a bowl on her head and took the scissors and cut around the bowl to cut our hair. She sure did.
I love the show and tell.
You like that? The reason I was dwelling on this is because I'm thinking, what can I share about being a nomad? I think that's a pretty clear description of what my nomadic life is.
And they love your stories. I mean, you're so authentic in your stories. I mean, they're just real.
Well, that's true. They are real. And I don't think you're going to hear this stuff from anybody else. Sharing the real stuff. Sure.
Anna H., and I've not seen that name before. Maybe you have, but she says your story is better than what's on TV. I agree.
You get Netflix when you come to these late streams.
And D, people, like, when you're telling your stories, I mean, you're just telling your stories. And I think all night, that's all people were saying is, I just want to hear her stories. Get on with the stories. I want to hear this. I want to hear that.
I had a good time. I hope you did too. And I hope you'll come again. Don't forget to go to Van Life Voyages on Sunday. They're doing my time slot every other Sunday. Go watch them. They're doing live streams about disabilities. Please make sure you go to them at 5 p.m. Pacific time on Sundays every other week. And they will be on this coming up Sunday. Okay, so let's show Lamb Cloud's Adventure, Nate, some support by attending his live streams. Thank you all. I will say good night before I keep talking. Good night. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Good night, D. We love you.